Oh, yes, this is what I'm talking about. Yes, bring back the flip phone. Now, what are we talking about here? This phone has been around for over 20 years, and it's probably been that long since you've had one. Do you still have one in your dresser drawer? Do you still have one in your basement in a box? That sound. Does that take you back? In your basement, a storage box somewhere, along with maybe your Palm Pilot and some other cool tools. Here is what we're talking about here. Even though these have long since come and gone, many young people, okay, we're talking millennials and Gen Z, are wanting these back. They're buying them up. They're finding old ones on eBay. They're buying them because some have still been made over the years in small quantities. And people are picking them up. Young people are picking them up for like $100. And they are gravitating toward these. Now, why? This is such old technology. You remember how incredibly low resolution the photo capacity was, the camera, right? It's not a smartphone. And yet, people are clamoring to get these. Now, that's just a percentage. That's just a small percentage of total people who have this desire to get back to these non-smartphones. But it's a sizable group nonetheless. What is it about us as even a culture and a society that draws us sometimes fairly consistently over the years back to things that we used to use and then put away? What is going on there? Well, we're in the middle of a new series called Rules for Tools. All right. And tool rule number 1 was make sure you have the right tool for the job. For example, if you need to remove stumps that are blocking your driveway in your cottage somewhere up north, you need to get a stump grinder. And it's really handy when you have a brother-in-law who knows a guy, and a deal is made, and suddenly the stump grinder monster shows up on your property. And with the right tool, you can work at that task, whatever it is. In this case, stump grinder, grinding stumps. You could do that all day, right? Because it fits the task. Now, by contrast, all right, if you spent some time putting together a gingerbread house over Christmas, okay, I wouldn't recommend that you use a nail gun to fasten it together. It just doesn't end well. But boy, sometimes you can be really tempted to use it because, the icing that you use to kind of glue things together, you have to hold on to it way too long. Okay, so that rule number 2 is for tools that what works in one situation doesn't necessarily work in another. Tool rule number 3 is that old is not always obsolete. We can see that with a flip phone, but we can see that in other examples too in society, can't we? And in our own lives and in the lives of people with whom we work and maybe family members. Let's apply this to learning and to education. I certainly see this with my tutoring clientele and also with my students in my classes that I teach. All right, old is not always obsolete. Now, the fact of the matter is that there are teachers who have been, excelling at teaching over generations, right? And there's some essentials that all teachers use. Master teachers. We're talking about people who have really figured out the art and the practice of really helping young people succeed. All right. For example, all right, one tool that's old but not obsolete is the whole concept of spending time getting to know your students. Now, back in the 70s, that may have involved some people, some teachers, handing out a piece of paper and getting students to fill it in. And maybe in the 90s and the 2000s, it would have been more online. And today, it's obviously online and maybe, audio files and whether it's face-to-face or distance learning, we want to bring as much authenticity to that relationship as possible to get to know students early, all right? Now, just because teachers did that in the 1950s, does that mean we don't have to do it now? No, of course not. We're talking about things that transcend time, things, practices that transcend what's perhaps trendy in education today, or what was trendy in education in the past. Because the fact is, trends come and they go, right? And it's very likely that, 5 or 10 years from now, someone's going to make a lot of money reinventing or hearkening back to something that we did 15 years ago or today or, maybe a little while ago. And they'll repackage it and they'll say, look, this is authentic learning. This is authentic education. All right. And we certainly learned about that when I think back, 25 years ago when I was doing cooperative learning in another school. That was just the big thing to do. And then that became widespread. And then we went on to do other kinds of practices. But the fact of the matter is, old is not always obsolete. Think about that. Think about that in your own life, all right? Whether you're young or young at heart, old is not always obsolete. Now, you're not going to be, really running your business at the speed of light by using fax machines. Although, who knows, because with, online security concerns that some people have, some people may prefer fax machines. But we see that technology evolves, and we see that our practices evolve, whether in or out of the classroom. But old is not always obsolete. Be thoughtful. Think outside the box. Don't just go along with the latest trends, because the latest trends in technology sometimes exist simply because it's possible for them to exist. Does that mean they're good? A lot of things that we're doing today have not been tested over time. So be careful, be thoughtful, and remember that the flip phone took you so much further than before you ever got one. And who knows, maybe it can take you in a new direction today.